So in this video, I'm going to be doing a ranking of all MCU trilogies and series. Guardians of the Galaxy is the newest addition to the MCU trilogy lineup with the recent addition and release of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. So I'm going to go through and rank all of the MCU trilogies and series. Now we have some trilogies in the MCU, and we also have series, which would be obviously anything that's more than 3. Now to qualify for this list though, you have to have more than 2 movies in your individual franchise. So that means stuff like Doctor Strange or Black Panther would not qualify for this rankings list, because as of right now, they only have 2 sort of individual movies in those respective series. So with that in mind, sit back, relax, and I hope you enjoy. Thor is one of a few spots on this list that is more than a trilogy. It's a series of 4. But regardless, as a series, I think most people would agree that it's lower tier in terms of MCU quality. I don't care what anybody says, that first Thor fucking sucked. Boring characters, boring story, boring action, boring romance, the shit was boring. I actually like Thor the Dark World more than most people, mainly because it had a better look and the action was definitely better, but it was hampered by what was undeniably a lackluster villain. Ragnarok was obviously fantastic. A top 10 MCU film that breathed new life into the character and the film series. It was just awesome. Even with Ragnarok though, the series as a whole would still be lower tier when it comes to series quality. But then Thor Love and Thunder came along and cemented the mediocre status. It wasn't terrible, but I, like most people, saw it as a missed opportunity that was okay at best. Everyone loves Tony Stark, the charming personality whom which the MCU's shoulders were built upon, but he certainly isn't beloved for how his trilogy turned out as a whole. Iron Man 1 was obviously a pivotal accomplishment, an excellent origin story from which the MCU began from. Things get shakier for old Shellhead after that with his sequels. Iron Man 2 was a total slopfest that missed the mark on almost everything it was trying to do. Iron Man 3 is a very unconventional MCU film. Whether or not you consider that a good or bad thing is up to you, but regardless, it's plagued by some legendary writing issues that defy logic, character motivation, or common sense. It's a good thing Tony Stark's legacy extends far beyond his overall trilogy. Otherwise, the Golden Avenger wouldn't be remembered so fondly.
Agreed?
As a trilogy, Ant-Man was mostly successful in what it was trying to do. The first 2 films took the approach of being fun comedic heist films that are among the most lighthearted in the MCU in terms of tone, and that's saying something. They were also much smaller, pun intended, in scale and spectacle, but that worked for the kind of films they were and what kind of character they were showcasing. Quantumania is where a different approach was taken. It's a much grander story with stakes, as it's a real showcase of Kang and has a much larger strange factor in terms of the stuff that happens. Based on the one time I've seen the film, I thought it was okay. The issue as it relates to the Ant-Man films is how it doesn't quite have the same identity and the charm that the first 2 films had that made them unique. Gone are the comedic hijinks when it came to shrinking or growing, or Lang's group of ex-con friends, stuff like that was in the first 2 films. Quantumania really has more of a purpose in setting up the next phase of the MCU than it does really furthering the story of Scott Lang and his friends. But as a trilogy, 2 out of 3, maybe 2.5 out of 3, is a better batting average than Iron Man and Thor had.
Cool, yeah. If it ain't broke.
The Avengers films obviously aren't a solo one-character series like the other films and series on this list, but it is still its own signature franchise that deserves its own spot in these rankings. This has obviously been the signature tentpole series of a generation, and each film has generated an insane amount of hype, and each film has really delivered on that hype, with one notable exception. Like most people, I don't think Age of Ultron is a bad movie, but it is a step down from the other Avengers films. For me, I think story-wise, the film starts to go downhill post-Hawkeye family visit, and the film just doesn't really deliver on the threat and menace of what the Age of Ultron really should have been. Because of this, the Avengers films have a batting average of 3 out of 4, or 3.5 out of 4, which earns them the spot they do on this ranking list. Spider-Man's time in the MCU has been glorious so far, with his involvement in the Avengers films and his as of now trilogy, with it being dubbed the Home Trilogy. No Way Home is obviously the crown jewel here, a film that will remain in the forefront of all of our minds for years on end, with its initial hype and how the film absolutely kicked ass and delivered on its multiverse shenanigans, and still remembering to be a great movie. But lest we not forget the great work the first two films in the series did, with them having a lot of fun with having Spidey in the MCU, established a proper youthful tone and energy, and made great work out of Spidey villains usually not considered to be much of a threat, with the Vulture and Mysterio. For those reasons and more, we obviously can't wait to see what comes next for the Webhead.
No, of course I'm not.
I mean, it's kind of obvious.
The Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy is a top 3 accomplishment in the MCU, ranking up there with the first Black Panther and the culmination of Infinity War and Endgame. You know, taking a team of heroes that the general public, including me, had no knowledge of whatsoever, and turning them into the most beloved heroes in the MCU is truly special stuff. At this point, it's hard to imagine what the series would have been without director James Gunn and the elements he brought to the table, talking about the writing, the humor, focus on family and characters, and of course, great, excellent music. One of the best things about Volume 3, which I thought was far from a perfect film, but it did something rare for the MCU, which is reach a natural conclusion for a series that satisfied the audience and avoided the franchise being trapped in an endless story loop that many series do get stuck in. You really do feel the emotion at the end here. We'll all still be hooked on the feeling, even if there's no more Guardians movies following James Gunn's trilogy.
You're just making it sad.
Captain America's trilogy finds the perfect formula and story for each respective installment. The first Avenger has the feel of a classic blockbuster, and it's great for a movie taking place in the 1940s, and it tells a great Captain America origin story. Captain America the Winter Soldier is Dark Knight-like in its execution of telling the perfect Captain America story, and in my opinion is the best non-Avengers MCU film. And then Captain America Civil War was the MCU just flexing, as it was able to effortlessly tell a story vast with characters while seamlessly introducing Black Panther and Spider-Man. Probably most amazing about Civil War though is how it was able to stay true to being a Captain America film with its tone, themes, and story despite all the different characters that it had. Now, it should be noted that Captain America, the franchise, is getting another installment, with it being obviously Sam Wilson as the lead. But as of now, Steve Rogers' trilogy is definitely something that the MCU should be very, very proud of.
You're damn right.
So there you have it with my ranking of all the individual trilogies and series in the MCU. As you can see from these rankings, quality varies for these series as a whole when you look at my rankings from 1 through 7. The unique thing about MCU trilogies and series though is how outside of the individual movie series, how these movies have to incorporate the events from other movies, mainly Avengers related stuff or special appearances like Ant-Man and Civil War or the Guardians in Love and Thunder, yet the individual franchise series films remain mostly pretty consistent in tone and expectations for those characters and stories. As of now, there aren't really any future additions to the MCU trilogy lineup or immediately on the horizon. Perhaps, I guess, Doctor Strange and his third movie if they ever get around to paying off the mid-credits scene from Multiverse of Madness, but we'll just have to see when that happens. So that'll do it for this video, this ranking of all MCU trilogies and series. If you made it to the end of this video, thank you for watching.